All right. Well, welcome back to another edition of Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, as always, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. And Eric, it's been a crazy week
for you,
for me as
everyone.
Yeah. So first off, I want to say thank you for the post on BBI, BigBlueInteractive.com. So my wife and I, Tuesday, I finished work Tuesday. We were on our way to go to dinner with my in-laws. One half of the in-laws we actually haven't even seen in 6 years for a lot of complicated family reasons. And we didn't even make it that far from our home before we were broadsided by a car that was cutting through traffic across like 6 lanes, basically 2 on one side, 4 on the side we were on. We were in the 4th lane over. We got hit pretty hard. A brand new vehicle that I've only had for 3 weeks has less than, I think, 80 miles on it. Totaled, all the airbags went off. We had 3 of the kids in the car with us. My wife was driving. She got banged up. The kids got banged up, but luckily not badly for all of them. I did, however, going the wrong way. I did fracture my wrist, which is going to require surgery on Tuesday, but we're powering through. But thank you to all the BBI folks and who reached out individually as well as in the post. And thank you for putting that up there.
Yeah, and we're officially have placed you on injured reserve. You're still plugged through this. Well, the good news is, I guess maybe you didn't have to end up at the in-laws' house. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. Anyways, bad joke. Bad attempt at a joke there. I hope you feel better.
If they're watching, we were going to go to dinner. It was all good. It was all good. I would have much rather been out to dinner than getting in a car accident.
No kidding. No kidding. So yes, thank you for powering through this. Again, I sent John many messages during the week saying we shouldn't do that this week. And he was like, nope, we got to do it. We got to do it. We got to do it. So thank you for coming on here and plugging through this.
So bear with us too. If I do anything stupid that accidentally take something down, I don't mean to. I'm trying to do things left-handed. I am right-handed, and this has been a joy and a half. So I'm trying to remove the ticker because that is the old ticker. And good. There we go. Perfect. So if you saw the thumbnail that I made, we're talking asshats here.
Yes,
and Eric, why don't you start a little bit? I know we discussed this previously, but where did the term asshat where did that start and what does it mean?
Yeah, and we're live, right? Because I don't see anybody in chat right now.
I see 17 people that are in. I don't know about the chat piece of it, but I can see 17 lives. So it doesn't show me everybody. It just shows me things that I can see tied to this. So I definitely, there's people.
As long as we have an audience out there.
We're live. And chat is open if you want to, if you definitely want to chat, you feel free and we can, we'll get to those as well.
I don't know that really even remember the origin of asshat. It's just something we labeled people that came on and had sort of inside information or they were privy to some sort of information that came from somebody that they knew. Oh, here we go. We got some people. Great. But I don't even remember who came up with the phrase, but it stuck. Right? I mean, do you remember?
Yeah, I don't remember who started the phrase. God, and it goes back a long way.
It goes back a long time. And there's always been, I tweeted about this, there's always been a tension between those who really crave to hear the rumors and they don't care. They think it's fun. And there are those people that get really, really pissed off and angry about almost like, how dare you, about not channeling my Greta Thunberg there, but how dare you? How dare you spread this kind of garbage? And I don't understand why people get upset about it especially when you say take these things with a grain of salt. So we've had over the years, this little dinky site, this small little site that started back in 1995 has broke some stories. We've had a lot of rumors that didn't end up being true. Either they were false reports or something did happen behind the scenes, and everything in between. And sometimes they're minor and sometimes they're major. But like the Eli Manning trade, we had wind of that way before anybody else. And I still think that was the agent or a family member of Eli, because it was way too specific on the trade details, what Eli would do on stage once his name was called by the Chargers, and went through the whole litany of things. And then that guy disappeared. He said, delete my account, and then he was gone. That was the end of Glove One. That was his name. But
that's right.
last year, the Burns trade. We were told about the Burns trade way before other people were reporting it. And so, and the big miss that happened last year is a lot of people said the Mays thing was going to happen. So we know they were talking to the Patriots about Derek May. It didn't happen. Some people said it was going to happen. That was a big swing and a miss. So what may be happening too here is this, and this is just pure speculation. They may have realized they can't plug these leaks, so they may actually also be what I call flooding the zone. So they may people out there sort of counter information. So some of the stuff that, and we'll get into this, some of the stuff that's being reported now by some asshats is contradictory of other asshats. So, but some of it ties in. So we'll get into the specifics in a second. So warning is this: if you don't like this stuff, turn off the episode. Don't listen to what we're talking about. To me, it's fun and it's interesting. And if it doesn't end up being true, it's no skin off my nose.
And the thing that you have said constantly. So anybody who wants to get mad, let's start with that real quick.
You're starting with one hand.
I'm going with. I have a New Belgium Fat Tire Ale is what I'm going with today. I bought a bunch of stuff for Monday. Is not sure what's going to happen on Monday, but you have always said, one, you cannot confirm or validate or give preference to anyone in particular. You don't know if what they're telling you is true or not true, but there are some that have a track record with you that says it's been true, and you take theirs with a little bit more validity than maybe some of the others. But the other thing is too, and I know some people, and it's fine that you're mentioning some people in the chat, guys. It's fine, but other people have been asking us, well, we should make a scorecard. Well, we kind of can't do that. It'd be really weird if we just named everybody who says they're an asshat, which would, because the Giants do look at stuff out there,
they do.
And we know they look at BBI because we know people within who have told us things that they've seen.
Yeah, and there was a scorecard last year for the Derek May thing. So, if you pay attention to the site closely enough, you will find out who. Look, some people have track records, some don't. Like I mentioned before, 4 people reached out to me, told me Giants were trying to trade for Matthew Stafford, and that came out later on. They were, so we were ahead of the game on not me, people contacting me. So they tried to trade for him in October. Paul Schwartz verified that last week that they tried to trade for him in October last year.
Yep. And
then I think it was 3 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I was contacted by a number of people saying they're really trying to get him. So let's start with this. I thought we should back up for a second and just sort of lay the groundwork before we get into specifics. So let's address the big elephant in the room. Is this? I promise not to get into the Colts game, people. So John's not going to.
Oh dear God!
I'll let that go. Even though Mike Garafolo did not let that go this week. So I'm trying to bring up a video.
He's an Eagles fan.
Yes, he is an Eagles fan, but he covers the team like he should cover the team. So
he used to be a guest with us often, actually.
Yeah, and he's a good guy, and he actually, believe it or not, donated to the site when we were doing donation campaigns. So
nice.
I was thinking about big pictures. This is because how did we get to the point where the Giants don't have a quarterback on the roster unless you consider Tommy DeVito, who Art Stapleton said they're going to tender this. He's going to sign his tender this weekend. So DeVito will technically now officially be on the roster, but I don't think any Giants fan out there is saying he's the answer to the quarterback position. So again, since the new regime has been in place, they have drafted no quarterbacks and they've signed 2 free agents. So they inherited Daniel Jones in 2022. They signed Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor was signed to a 2-year deal. We all know what happened. Surprise playoff season. They decide to re-sign Daniel to a $160 million deal. Tyrod's still on the roster. Then there was the disaster of 2023. Tyrod signs with the Jets. Their only other free agent they brought on board was Drew Lock, who we all know about Drew Lock. We don't have to get into that. And which brings us up to now where we've now know they tried to trade for Stafford in October of 2024 during last year's horrific season. And they continue to try to trade for him this year. And if you believe Rich Eisen, the Giants matched the Rams' demands for trade compensation, and they matched Stafford's demands for salary. So the Giants did everything they could have done to get Stafford, and the Rams, at least the Rams, said no. So we don't know what Stafford felt like, but the Rams had control of the situation because they could trade him or not. I mean, if Rams really wanted to do it, they could trade him, and he doesn't have to say where he goes, because I don't think he had a no trade clause in his contract.
Correct. He did not. He did not. He did not.
Yeah, because I tried to look that up and I couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
So my belief is, and I think the belief of others, is the Rams were using, and maybe Stafford were using, other teams like the Giants to set the market on the contract. I don't know. Is that how you feel?
I would say that to a degree, the answer is yes. But I think because we know Stafford actually ended up taking less money to be with the Rams, I think they let him go and see how much more you would get somewhere else, and if that would be enough for you to say yes or take the offer we gave. He took less to stay with the Rams. We know that. We know the Giants offered more. I believe Vegas offered more, and the Giants worked out compensation with the Rams. Stafford decided to stay in LA for less money. So I think what they did was they basically said, here's our offer. If you can get one so much better, go ahead. You can do that. And he found offers that were more, but not enough for him to leave. So I think they gave him the opportunity. It was almost like they called his bluff, and he chose to stay.
And I think the reason I'm bringing all this up, some people may be saying, why are you rehashing this? Because there's an impression that, again, whether you agree with it or not, that the Giants continue to strike out on these types of things. So they didn't think they needed to draft a quarterback since Shane and Dable have been here. So we're all assuming they're going to draft, but they haven't drafted a quarterback. They did sign 2 free agents, but I don't think you or anyone else there would think these were free agents that were likely to be satisfactory starters in the NFL. I think they were, Tyrod Taylor and Drew Lock were backup types that had some experience starting, but no one thought that. So the overall impression is the Giants have kind of ignored the position, unless you count re-signing Daniel Jones, and they struck out on their first attempt now, or second attempt if you consider October too, to fix the position. So the frustration level, I think, is building a little bit. And we talked about this earlier. The Giants are in a dangerous position here because there is a musical chairs element to. They don't want to be stuck going into the draft without an insurance policy, because I don't think it's going to happen. But if those quarterbacks go 1-2 before the Giants, then they're in a really difficult spot. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, pivot to Jackson Dart, but then you have to figure out where the hell does Jackson Dart go in the draft. Some people, again, last year they said, oh, we'll wait in the second round and we'll get Penix or we'll get Nix then, because it wasn't assumed earlier in the process that those guys would go that high. So no, I don't think anyone thought all 6 quarterbacks go in the first 12 picks.
Right. No.
So the Giants are in a difficult situation here. So I thought, we should have Joe Shane come on and address this. And, so.
Oh my gosh. What do I do?
So, I think there was an accident, so we'll have to have Joe Shane come on later. And we can't. But sorry about that, guys. But that's where we're at. I don't know if you want to address before we get the rumors, but that, to me right now, all teams try to do things and they don't, and there are failures. So at least they try to get Stafford, you could argue. Now, whether people wanted Stafford or not, but they tried to do it. But the trying matter, they got to get somebody.
You're right. So let's assume devil's advocate. And I know I tend to walk closer to the Pollyanna side than you do. But let's assume that the conversation that they had, Mara and Shane were already on board with Shane coming back prior to the last game of the season. We think that's a very rational and reasonable assumption based on the fact that the only other meeting that the Giants had was specifically Shane Mara meeting with Daboll before the last game. And that seemed to be to determine what the plan was and Daboll going forward, not Shane. Shane was already coming back. Right. So if that's the case, they lay out their plan and they have a plan. We don't know what that plan is, but they have a plan. Now, running's not a plan, but that's what you do when a plan fails. But right now, they have a plan. You know that if you saw Tremors. But right now, it seems like veteran. I don't think they've swung a miss. I just think that was peg one of the veteran thing that they started in the fall. The next peg is what other veteran are they going to try to get? Free agents,
right?
Guys that are about to be free agents, like Aaron Rodgers. Or potential free agent and or trades. Now you're talking to Carr, you're talking to Cousins. We don't know yet that case. But back to what you were saying, the other piece about the draft that becomes very important is the Giants are also talking about supposedly moving up to number 1. That would be to ensure that they get one of, we assume, 2 quarterbacks, but it's probably just the one guy, and make sure that they get him. But that doesn't take you out of the veteran. In fact, if anything, it doubles down on why the Giants have to get a veteran, or the Titans are going to rape them when it comes.
That's what and that was my point this week. If they get to the 12th, which is the start of official, so the 10th is legal tampering starts. That's when we're going to do our show on the 10th, starting at noon live.
Absolutely,
we're going to be there with lots of beer and for hours. So you might see us on the floor at some point. So we're going to start at noon, and that's legal tampering. If they get to the 12th, which is the official start of free agency, and they don't have a quarterback locked up, and these quarterbacks that the few that are out there are taken off the table, then the Titans got the Giants, or the Browns have the Giants, because they know the Giants don't have any leverage. They've got to do something because they brought back Shane and Daboll, and because they're on the hot seat. So they're in a. So that's why I said the calendar is working against them, and that's why I think we may hear by this weekend who the starting quarterback in the Giants is on opening day. We'll get into that in a second. But I think, tell me if I'm wrong. You think we might hear something this weekend, right? I would think so.
I would think so. I've got some people asking me if we are live, and I'm seeing we're pushing 60 people on this piece right here. So I just want to make sure we are live. So I know it's out there. We got people in chat.
People chat on us. So and they're reacting to us, so we're live. It might be because I embedded that thing in the forum. But anyway, so I think they've got to do something. I think there's going to be something done by this weekend. And if there isn't, they're playing with fire here. So they've got to get some veteran as an insurance policy in case the draft does not go their way. So they're not left with just the Drew Locks of the world starting the season. So let's get into it.
You keep talking.
Okay.
For a minute, I'm going to check something because I am seeing something on the site that's showing me the chat pieces up, but that the video part is not on the stream, but it should be. I'm seeing it.
Okay.
So you keep talking.
Okay.
People are in here.
So all right. So we have a number of people who have come forward on BBI, again, sharing what they've heard. And again, when I say people are sharing things, what they've heard, people are saying, where are they getting their information from? Even I don't know, because they're not going to tell me, because it puts them at risk. So my overall impression has always been, it's not somebody from the front office. It's not somebody inside the team. It's an agent, family member, somebody who is a business partner, whatever. They're hearing things from people. And again, some of these people have very good track records. One of the first guys that has a very good track record is Capiche. And he's a guy that posts very little. When he comes on and says something, he's very short, but he's got a really good track record. And I noticed him right away when he first started posting a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, that he, you see him like post maybe 6 or 7 times a year, but he comes in and comes out, drops a piece of information and disappears. And I'm like, all right, who is that guy? And it's the way he says it. So I've been tracking him. So he basically came on, I want to say a week ago, and he's the one who said Rodgers is basically a done deal without. Now there's a little bit of a conflict here. He says a done deal, but they're still working on incentives. If you're working on incentives, to me that doesn't sound like a done deal. But I think the way I interpreted it was basically it's done. They're just fine tuning that. So he was basically saying Rodgers is done, and the incentives are based on the number of games Rodgers plays, because Rodgers doesn't want to be set. He's thinking in terms of, I don't want to be sad at some point because of financial reasons, as some quarterbacks do. So that he threw that out there.
So real quick though, with that in mind, if the incentive is about games played, then I would assume it's games played, games available.
Game started.
Yeah, because if you
but very specific. I think he said 14.
Because even if the Giants draft somebody, you still could they could sit you down at 5 games and you wouldn't get those incentives.
Right.
So my assumption would have to be availability, because health has to be the biggest concern for his availability. Yes. So the incentives, I bet you, are tied more to health than they are.
And they might have been. So again, so with people looking for me to answer the question, I can't answer. I can only tell you what was relayed there. So what was interesting is he later said that he's not hearing trade up, he was hearing trade down with the Raiders. So not mentioning if another quarterback would be drafted at that spot. He just merely said that Rodgers is done. If they trade, it's trading down. So we're going to get into that because there's other people who are saying trading up, and not just BBI people. So he is one of 2 asshats who have said the Giants are not going to give away their number 1 pick in 2026 to move up. So there's 2 asshats, and we'll get to the other one. There are 2 asshats out there who've said, we're not trading up and giving away our number 1 pick. We may trade up, but we're not giving up our number 1 pick. Interestingly, he said later on, too, that don't be surprised if the Giants are pursuing Mekhi Becton and Rasul Douglas, the corner. So you and I have talked about Mekhi Becton before. Like, if you're going after him, then why don't you just move Evan Neal to guard?
Did you see Jordan Renan's post? I think it was today, that said at some point this offseason the Giants are going to move Evan Neal to guard.
No, I did not. But if they don't, they're dumb.
Right. What would be the reason to keep? You might as well cut him if you're not going to.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to play him at tackle. You already said
he can't play tackle. He can't handle tackle. So. Now, there have been, again, I don't want to spend too much time on it. There have been legitimate reasons why they have not moved him to guard before, because he's been injured.
Sure.
Therefore, he can't practice at guard. So, but now that excuse doesn't exist anymore. He has a full offseason now. He can start in the offseason, in the OTAs, in the spring, working on guard. So if they don't do that, I'm going to be like, ugh, what are they doing? All right. So that was Capiche. I value his opinion because, again, he doesn't advertise. He doesn't pat himself on the back. He comes and goes like Loved One. He kind of comes and goes. Train master. Neil is a guard, security guard. So that was number 1. So then we hear from Go Deep, who starts a thread saying with asterisks, alert, alert, alert. Giants trading up the number 1, probably for Ward, though he said they really like Carter, which then he later on said, I can't imagine if they trade up it's for Carter, but that's what he heard. So he thinks it's for Ward if they trade up, and he's the one who said they're talking about swapping Kayvon Thibodeau for Landry with the Titans. So and we'll get into it, but that fits in with another Reddit rumor that came later. And I think one of the reasons why I think this could have some legs to it is what I think you and I talked about this in another episode, or either online or offline, but they're not going to give the 5th-year option to Neal, we don't think.
Correct.
And we've debated whether they should give it to Kayvon Thibodeau or not. This would be a way for them, public relations wise, and this is what the Reddit report said too, but we've talked about this. Trading Kayvon would allow them PR wise to sort of cover the fact that both those top 7 picks didn't work out. So if you sort of say, well, he was part of the trade to get the franchise quarterback, so he had value, that sort of hides the fact that you didn't nail it with your first 2 picks.
So what I think is funny is I went back and I found from one of our previous shows where I laid that out as a possibility, that one of the reasons why I thought that if something happened earlier, because we said what was the impetus for the Titans to make a deal quickly? They don't have to. They're sitting at 1. Let everybody kind of, throw them the offers that they want. And I said the reason it might get done sooner is they are already telling Harold Landry to look for a trade partner. They want to get out of that contract. So the possibility would be that the Giants might move Thibodeau as kind of a little bit of an incentive to go sooner. And so I had that in the clip. It's weird that it came out later that when someone quoted, this is other things that's being talked about, it mirrored what I was throwing out there as an up. I'm not saying I'm an insider, but I'm beginning to wonder if someone didn't take that's something that I had said in this show, or maybe somebody else said it elsewhere, and then kind of constructed that to have it make sense. What I said, and I think Cy was on board that day when we talked about it, when I said to Cy is the Giants can drag out picking up Thibodeau's 5th-year option all the way to May. They can wait to the draft. If they get Carter, they now don't necessarily have to pick up the 5th on Thibodeau. They can let that ride. They have time to decide, which also means trading him, letting another team pick up the 5th if they want to or not. It's up to them. But I think there's something to be said there. I'm beginning to get the weird feeling the Giants are trying to get away from 2 very specific things. One is the stink stench albatross that was the Daniel Jones era and all that stuff, which means Darius Slayton is going to catch, love, prey somewhere else, and that's how Slayton will get his groove on. And then from there, the Giants on the defense, there's rumors now about Okereke, maybe Thibodeau. These guys might be more of a Wink Martindale kind of type of guy, and they're trying to clean the slate of all that stuff. I don't know, but I do know that I threw that out there about Thibodeau being in there and Landry being involved, and suddenly I'm seeing it on X and elsewhere. So
let's come back to Shane Bowen in a second, because I noticed 2 asshat remarks, unsolicited, but responding to other people that were not encouraging about Bowen, but we'll come back to that. So that was go deep. And then we had another asshat, Brandon Walsh, mention that Mara, again, will not allow a trade up that gives away the 2026 number 1 pick. So in a way, Mara is, if this is true, Mara is being a positive influence in this situation. I don't think the implication is that definitely Shane is thinking this, but the thing is they're not going to give up next year's number 1 because that would be dumb. I hope they believe that, because that would be number 1. I think it would be dumb because, again, next year's number 1 pick could be the first pick in the entire draft again, in a really deep quarterback draft. So what I thought was interesting too, he mentioned is. We've seen this a couple times now, that the number it probably will involve a number 2 pick. So, and I've seen people mention, both the Reddit person and asshats, saying if the Giants do trade up to number 1, it might be next year's number 2, or it could be this year's number 2. But it seemed to be the prevailing opinion seemed to be next year's number 2 plus like our 3rd rounder this year. So. I'm not going to mention the Colts game, but
oh my God!
But if we're trading up to 1, it's probably going to cost us a 2 and a 3. It just depends on what years they are. So that will affect free agency, because the 2 or 3 that you were thinking about addressing, corner or defensive tackle, is now not there because you traded it to Tennessee. So now then the Reddit report came out, which was eerily similar to a number of the reports that were on BBI, but much more specific, saying that the Giants tried to offer 2 number 3s and were rebuffed by the Titans, and that they what's being discussed, the Giants countered with this year's number 3 and next year's number 2, what I just mentioned. And they also mentioned the Tibbs Landry swap, the PR element, which we talked about. They specifically mentioned that would allow Shane some cover for the fact that Thibodeau is on the move too. Wait, I enjoyed that Sunday. Okay.
Yeah. You get people going with that goddamn Colts game anymore, I swear to God.
I'm going to play that clip of Jared
I'm going to drive to your house.
Yeah.
Well, I won't. Somebody else will drive.
Well, look, I love the second and third round, and giving away second and third round picks bothers me. And just because of, anyway, I don't want to, because people said let it go, Eric. All right. So the interesting thing about the Reddit report was this. This is the different part. And again, I don't discount this either. So if they can't come to an agreement with the Titans before free agency, they will pivot to Aaron Rodgers. So this is a little bit different than Capiche, who said Rodgers is a done deal. They're saying that Rodgers is the fallback position.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
I don't either, but it wouldn't shock me. I'm throwing it out there because, again, this was very detailed.
See, but I agree, but I don't think you can't possibly do that. We don't have – Tommy DeVito sounds great if you sign in autographs for some local New Jersey high school, but he's not – you're not counting on him. We need a veteran no matter what.
No, right. And then what I interpreted – they didn't say this, but what I interpreted this as, and maybe I'm reading too much in this, is they wouldn't go for the Rodgers type. They would probably sign what you've talked about before, the Garoppolos, the Wentzes, that type of quarterback. They didn't say that, but my interpretation of this was because they mentioned Rodgers and Wilson. And if you're signing Rodgers or Wilson, those guys want to start here. Whereas if you're signing like a Wentz or a Garoppolo, or I can't even think of the guy. That type. It's a different tier. It's a different tier.
That's it. But I 100% agree with you. The problem is then I say you don't have a plan. You know what I mean? Like, because here's the thing.
Oh my gosh. What do I do?
Okay, listen.
I love that clip so much. It's like, what do I do? What do I do?
See, this is the problem. But this is why I disagree with that. You don't engage in Aaron Rodgers in discussion, which we assume they have. Right? There's too many things out there now by legit big time media folks. Schrager's hinted at it. Pat McAfee even talked about the fact now that he's on board, that there's something going on there. So right. You don't talk to Rodgers a little bit with the, oh, by the way, if we can't work out this deal, we're going to sign you. You're talking to him going, we want you on board. Your fallback is a Wilson, maybe a Fields from Rodgers. I'm still trying to get the draft pick. That's for the future. But I need a veteran, and they have to win. So I don't buy that bullshit. The only way you ultimately do that is if you strike out with Rodgers, you strike out with Wilson, you strike out with Fields. Now you're down to a Garoppolo, you're down to a Wentz, you're down to something like that, and the draft pick. We're getting a quarterback drafted regardless of who we sign at quarterback.
Right. Again, I'm not arguing this. I'm just saying it's out there. And I could see, again, we don't know what their plan, what the process is.
Right.
The way I'm leaning right now, and I've seen a lot of Giants fans on X say they'd be okay with this, and on BBI, is I think a lot of people would be okay with Rodgers/Ward. And then it's like, again, Eli Manning, Kurt Warner situation. So they start out, Rodgers comes in, plays the bulk or half the season or whatever, and he may play more of the season if there's these, depending on the contract, we'll see. And then the Ward's your quarterback of the future. Or if that doesn't work out, then maybe you maneuver to get Jackson Dart or Shedeur or whatever, something like that. So I think a lot of Giants fans like the idea of Aaron Rodgers and Ward as a combination. I'm just saying that this Reddit prediction was out there about it. Seeing again, if there's no trade up, then they pivot to Rodgers. That's out there. I'm just reporting again.
Sure,
don't shoot the messenger. That's what's out there. But what's interesting is you're also seeing a couple of reports in all of this that the Giants like Dart. And Garofolo has said that now too. So, and I heard that Dart, I heard this. They don't like Dart as much as Ward and Shedeur, but they like him. So Dart's in the equation here. How much they like him, I don't know. I get a little bit nervous with those people saying he'll be there in the top of the second round or he'll be there at the bottom of the first round. As we learned last year, you just don't know. On the flip side, I saw a mock draft from Charles Davis, I think it was, who had the Giants taking Jackson Dart at 3. Can you imagine that? I mean, again, if it works out, if he's the guy and it works out, then great. But that seems awfully high. That seems awfully high to me. So.
History says that won't work out. But it is guys that go well above where they originally projected to be drafted. It's a big time swing and miss lots of times. What I would think more likely is I think that where you're hearing about that trade down is if we can get Rodgers in place, we become very much in control. And I think this is where people really need to understand this a lot more because I see still a lot of hate about the possibility of Rodgers. I don't care about his personal life. I don't care about any of his beliefs about shit. I care nothing about that. He threw 28 touchdown passes on a bad Jets team last year, a team that was going through a head coach that got rid of him halfway through the season. The general manager was on his way out, even though he spectacularly well in the draft. But he was on his way out. You got an owner who apparently his teenage son was helping make some of the decisions. That's pretty interesting. So you could see that was a train wreck of personalities and whatever, but he still threw 28 touchdown passes. We've had 30 touchdown passes combined from all of our quarterbacks over the last 2 years. And that's in losing seasons, by the way, where generally you can get some shitty stats added in and it looks better than it really is. We still only managed 30 in 2 years. He did 28 and 1. So you get Rodgers, and all of a sudden, we can be a buyer or a seller in the draft. We don't have to do either one. We could just sit at 3. We become very much in control of what we want. You also have to expect that a Davante Adams is coming as well. If Rodgers comes here, Adams is more than likely, not 100%, but I would bet more than 75% is going to come with him. You put an Adams on one side and you got Neighbors on the other and you've got Rodgers. We can kind of dictate what we want to in a number of different areas. And by the way, the big question everybody likes to ask, why would anybody come to the Giants? Why would I want to go to the Giants? You had Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams follows him. There will be other players that want to come. Why? Because Rodgers brings attention and these guys crave money and they crave attention.
What is the connection between Davante Adams and Rodgers that it's so? I mean, what is this? Again, you're not the only one who's saying this, but what is
Adams wanted out of. So Adams left the Packers because he wanted more money. Right? He wanted more money. Ultimately, when Rodgers left the Packers, Adams wanted Rodgers to come there. The Raiders didn't do that. Then Adams wanted out of his deal with the Raiders to go where Rodgers was. Yeah, that was what he wanted.
I wasn't following that. I wasn't following it at the time, so I just didn't understand why because you don't see that kind of loyalty when money's involved usually. So
they have such a connect. Well, and they're going to get paid. I mean, you're going to get paid, but they have such a very. It's one of those things that you can't teach anymore. It's instinctual. And if I get a quarterback who's very instinctual in what he does, I need somebody who is very much in tune with that guy to help other people understand what that guy is. If you drop that guy into just what we have at wide receiver, what kind of experience do these guys have that they're going to be able to pick up on what Rodgers does? They're used to Daniel Jones. I'm sorry.
What are you trying to say, John?
I'm saying we literally are taking guys with the talent to be, I don't know, part of the Air Coryell offenses, but we were playing them with Bronco Nagurski. So we really want something a little different. We want a guy who knows how to do this. Look at Rodgers sometimes come to the line, and he instantly knows he's going to the tight end. Even though they're spread wide, they're going to bring the blitz. He's just throwing it to the tight end. Or Adams knows by the look. You see lots of times the Giants will have a guy, no one's even on him at wide receiver. And Jones is still going through his read. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? He's wide open. Just snap the ball. Rodgers will snap the ball.
So Look, the questions with Rodgers is not about his head in terms of his ability to diagnose and know lower the football. It's can he stay healthy and can he physically still do it? The people out there who are saying, hell no, hell no, hell no, you got to come up with a plan. There aren't a lot of guys out there. Kirk Cousins is not out there. There's rumors. There's more and more rumors saying that what's his face is staying in with the Vikings. So Darnold may not be out there. Derek Carr is still a Saint. So there aren't a whole heck of a lot of options out there. And I think John and I are on the same page with a lot of other people that this coaching staff is not going to put all their faith in a rookie. So they're going to bring in a veteran. And so you can make an argument that they should go second-tier quarterbacks. What is Brandon?
I'm going to add one more to there.
Mentoring.
So okay. I'm going to add another thing from him. I would agree to that to a point, Brendan, but here's the deal.
Good question.
Daboll, if you're thinking from the upper level thinking, then that's probably true. If you bring that down to Shane and Daboll, that's probably not so true. They got a quarterback coach for a reason. You take care of that. We got to win games. I need a quarterback. We got to win some games or we're not going to be here, and it won't matter who's been mentored. So it is two different things, and I can see from an organizational standpoint, you might have different objectives, but overall, I think Mara's already laid it out there. You won in 22 with the guy that we signed that you said now you couldn't win with. So now you go, if I let you get the guys you want, you better win games. The Giants have, I think, for Daboll to come back, he's got to win at least 8. And they have to be very close to 9 and 10. They're very close games. They literally need a winning season, I think, to come back. It seems pretty obvious.
Did you see at the combine who Cam Ward said he looks up to?
I'm trying to remember. I can't
Aaron
remember.
Rodgers.
It was right. Ooh. Well, You see Malik Neighbors constantly talks about the Giants are getting a veteran and a rookie. I'm like, it's weird that we're doing both. Like, it's already been told to you. That's how this is going to go.
Well, okay. So kudos to the 4 guys that told me that they were going to go for Matthew Stafford. If Capiche, who came out way before everybody and said they're going to get Aaron Rodgers is correct, he deserves, again, if we're doing these rankings, he deserves a big pat on the back, and people need to pay attention to him because, like I said, he doesn't post often, but when he does. One other thing I was told privately, which I'm not going to give the specifics because I was told I couldn't, this specific name, but for those who are a little bit worried about the Giants don't pay enough attention to the trenches, I got a cat in my lap, by the way. Just jumped on my lap.
Is that a code? Is that code?
Yes. He's saying don't reveal any sources.
It's like
somebody wants to get fed, is what it is. There is an offensive lineman that they like a lot in this draft. It's probably going to go in the first round. So they are also looking at the trenches too. So the problem is they don't have a lot of picks. They have a normal number of picks. If they trade up, they're not going to have a normal number of picks. That's why I don't like to trade up, and that's why I don't like certain games. But anyways, those were the ass hats. One other thing too, I said I want to come back.
Yeah, I need a buzzer. I need a buzzer for you. I need a buzzer for you.
Yes,
every time that goddamn Colts game comes up.
Reacting, and then I want to start taking questions. So there was very disappointing things that have come out. So the other day, before we move to that, so I want to play this clip because you've been trying to get him. But first, before I forget, kudos to you. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers before anyone else, not as coming to the Giants, but you
as a possibility. Yeah,
you said way before everyone else that Aaron Rodgers should be on the radar screen, and I was like, "What, Aaron Rodgers?" But applause to you for that. So you've been trying to get Peter Schrager on here. You actually made a plea, I think, on our show.
Yes.
So I went on Twitter yesterday, and Peter tagged me on this tweet playing this. So I just want to play this for people who haven't seen it. It's just 1 minute long. So
what leaves them now is the 3rd pick, which means they can't just sit there and get Cam Ward. And talk of Rodgers, which from what I gather isn't out of pocket and is also a very real possibility considering what the number might be. And the thought that he wasn't so bad last year, teammates like him, and he and Dable kind of playing with a chip on both of their shoulders this year. Let's team up and let's do this thing together.
He's one of the best options out there. I mean, I know it wasn't a great season with the Jets, but look around. It's not a great, and it's not going to cost you a ton of money. I know it's an option there. I got to see if Aaron's willing to make. That's the part I can't really put into place right now, is if he's willing to go there and to play. And even if you do, you got to do something in this draft. I mean, you need your quarterback of the future. It sucks that you lost to the Colts in the draft order, but as a win, you can't win that game. You just can't win that game.
Malik Neighbors going to the Hall of Fame after that game.
I would say, because John Mara always wants to win, he's anti-tanking, but I would say if John Mara had told Brian Dable and Joe Shane before that game that you guys are going to be safe no matter what, maybe a different outcome in that game.
Yeah.
I hate you.
You
did that last part on purpose.
No. I'll leave that there without comment. But the thing is interesting. All right, so Mike knows BBI. He used to cover the Giants, and now he's a national reporter. But Mike's a friend of BBI. Peter has mentioned BBI on Good Morning Football, and he tagged us on that. So two things, Pete, if you're watching, come on the show. We'd love to see you on the show. Number one. That's number one. Number two, thank you for sharing that. But again, that's more confirmation again that, and they're not the only ones. A lot of people have now picked up on Giants and Aaron Rodgers. And they made an explanation along the lines that you and I have been saying. It makes sense to bring in a Rodgers and draft your quarterback of the future. And that's what they were talking about there. So the big question is this, and we'll start taking questions. Do the Giants, if they sign Rodgers, let's assume they sign Rodgers, could be, and we might hear this as soon as Monday, we might hear this. If they sign Rodgers, do they stand pat at 3? Which no one seems to be talking about right now. Do they trade up, which a couple of asshats have said they're going to do, to get Ward? Or like Capiche has said, he's the guy who said Rodgers was coming here, they might trade back to 6 with the Raiders. And if they're trading back to 6, are they thinking quarterback still at that point, like a Shedeur Sanders or maybe Dart? Or are they thinking about another position and then they'll take a shot at a quarterback later? And go, I don't know the answer to that. But let's assume they sign Rodgers. What do you think? What is your gut telling you right now? Are they trading up, trading down, same path?
Well, I think they want Ward. I think that's option one. Is they want Ward. They want
with Rodgers.
Rodgers. I'm saying Rodgers is on board. They still want. They know Rodgers is 41, going to be 42 years old. So whatever you're doing is got a 2-year max shelf life. I think they want Ward. The question becomes now, though, is there such a big gap between Ward and Sanders and then Sanders and Dart that says, okay, I can win games with Aaron Rodgers. In fact, I might win a pretty decent amount of games considering what we could do elsewhere talent-wise. I personally think they would like to see if they can get Ward, and maybe the Titans change what they're looking to get because they know they've got no leverage. Or they just sit at 3 and hope that he's there. Because let's be honest, you're at 3, right? If Ward is one of your 3 guys, that leaves you Hunter and Carter. You're guaranteed of getting one of those 3 guys. Guaranteed.
Right.
If quarterback, but if you don't care so much about either of the other 2, and I don't mean you don't like them, but you don't care if somebody else grabs them by dropping down because you want to load up on other stuff for next year, then I trade down. It really comes down to how much more they love Carter and or Hunter on top of Ward if he's not there. I don't want to trade up. If you do it, great, fine, whatever. But I don't want to because you're giving up stuff this year and next year. Now, if it's a 3 and a 3, which we've already been told that ain't going to happen.
Right.
I did offer up a possibility of altering some picks We switch with them in the second. We give them our third. We get their fourth. We give them a second or third next year. We get their third or fourth next year. That to me, okay, fine. I could work with that because then I can move around still. If I still have my second, I could drop down some, recoup that third round pick. I didn't give up a first next year, and I'm still in good shape. If I have to give up a first this year, a second this year, so basically switching first, a second this year, and a second or first next year, and the second sounds like next year, if it's a second and a fourth. No way. No way. You cannot do that.
Well, so my first instinct was, okay, Rodgers is coming here, but if we get Ward too, great. So I like the idea of Rodgers, Ward. But like we've talked about, I don't like giving up those picks. But if you get your guy, it's worth the pick. So I'm going to do what other people have told me to do and move past what happened in that game and just deal with the reality. So let's just say that let's deal in the now. The Giants are picking third. They have a chance to move up to 1. You don't get those chances many times. Just do it if you believe in Ward. However, if the Raiders come to you and say, we'll give up a 1 next year to move up to 3, and you have Rodgers in the bag right now for 1 year, maybe 2, but 1 year, he gives you the ability to trade back to 6, pick up on 1 next year to go with your 1 in a supposedly more quarterback-rich draft, and then you've got Rodgers in the short term. So the question to me comes, how much do you so you said, and I'm not discounting this, you said how much do you really like Carter and how much do you really like Hunter? Well, I got a juicy bit on that too. I hear the Giants really like Hunter, by the way. So how much do you like those guys vis-a-vis getting the quarterbacks that'll be in next year's draft with that extra number 1? So that's what it means is how much do you love Ward? If you really, really love Ward, trading up to number 1 makes sense. If you have reservations about Ward and the Raiders come to you and say, we'll give you next year's number 1 if you move back to 6, I think I'm doing that deal. I think I'm doing that deal.
Sure.
And again, I'm looking about part of this is, John, and people don't, and you're not going to like this. I don't think Daboll's going to survive. And one of the reasons why I don't think Daboll's going to survive is we now have Carl Banks kind of threw Shane Bowen under the bus. I don't know if you saw that on Twitter.
I saw that.
And we had a couple of asshats on BBI, grumpier asshats. Again, people that don't come out and beat their chest, but when they do speak, they said the players don't like Bowen. And I believe that. That's one of those things that I kind of believe. And this is in response to Bobby Okereke's again, we don't know if Pat Leonard is full of it or whatever, but Pat Leonard said the Giants, some inside the Giants organization, are not happy with the way Bobby Okereke played last year in this system. We know Banks regressed in this system. So we're in a situation where the coach that we have doesn't seem to be adapting to the talent, but the Giants are now having to adapt the talent to the coach, who the players on the team right now, according to other people, in other words, both asshats said Carl knows that the players don't like him. And it was said in such a way that this is common knowledge. So if Shane Bowen is a dud, and remember, Shane Bowen was not the defensive coordinator really in Tennessee. That was Vrabel. Vrabel was the head coach, and Shane. And this was always my concern with Shane Bowen. We've talked about this on the old show. Is how much of that Tennessee defense was really his, and how much was Vrabel's. I think we're learning that much of it was Vrabel's.
Yeah, but Eric, look at our red zone, his red zone defense. Did you not see this? Let me break this out. Yeah. Here's what I say to that though. It's weird that those grumblings are coming out the way that they are right now, because who's saying what first? Is it the players are saying they don't like certain things, or did somebody in the Giants organization go, we are not overly thrilled with Okereke? Now all of a sudden words coming out. I don't like Bowen. I thought the little bit that I saw him, the Hard Knocks thing, I try not to take too much into that. But there were a couple things I saw him, and I've mentioned this multiple times. In fact, you've said it's really not that big of a deal. But for me, it is. This whole bullshit that he talked about Isaiah Simmons, who wasn't even signed to the team at that time yet. He was a free agent still at the time. And then when you made a big deal about what he could do, and then I watched all season long, and you hardly played him. So what the hell are you talking about? I think guys that were very much more wink guys, and it looked like we were, quite frankly, I feel like I'm a pretty knowledgeable football fan. I've known football my entire life. I know defense for sure. I've watched it from the early days of football, knowing this is how you play defense, and the Giants have always had a good one. I can't tell you exactly what kind of a defense we run. I know it seems to be a 3-4. But we line guys up many times like it's a 4-3, but we don't really play that second interior defensive lineman like he's a tackle. So I have no freaking idea what we're doing. And then you watch the corners. Are we playing aggressive man-to-man? Are we playing safe or zone? Are we playing too deep? Are we playing coverage on the corners and we're funneling everything in the middle? I don't know what the hell we're doing because guys don't seem to know what they're doing. So it's an identity thing that we lack. I think it starts in the trenches, though. And I got a feeling that the Giants have decided there's a few things. I think Burns is a new building block because of they went out and got him. He's a Shane guy. Lawrence is a building block, period, because of who he is. Boom. I don't think Thibodeau is a guy that they're trying to build around, which is why Harold Landry makes sense because he would know Bowen's defense or Vrabel's defense that we're kind of running a hybrid of. He would know what is expected of him, and he's a guy who's probably going to toe the line a little bit more and fit in. I don't know what the deal is with O'Caracan. I don't know what the deal is with Banks, but those guys don't seem to fit it. So there's a lot going on there. I disagree about Daboll. I don't like him, by the way, just so we're clear.
Yeah.
I just think if they win 9 games, he's coming back.
Well, what I'm a little bit concerned about is, so John Mara spoke after the season ended, and who was one of the people he said negative things about? He said he didn't like the defense.
Yeah.
So we all thought, well, that's the end of Shane. But Shane didn't go anywhere. And then a few weeks later,
but then we got rid of the DB.
We got rid of the defensive back coaches, both of them. So I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to say I've got a bad feeling about this. If you go into a new season with Aaron Rodgers, I think you can score points. Let's say you're right. Let's say they get Devontae Adams. You add Devontae Adams to Neighbors and Theo Johnson and Tracy, and hopefully the offensive line can stay. That's another myth that keeps going around too. Everybody keeps saying the Giants, that these quarterbacks won't survive behind the Giants offensive line. If, and it's a huge if, Andrew Thomas is healthy, this offensive line was very good pass blocking for the first 6 weeks of the season. Then he went down. They shift for their first instinct was to shift Izudu out there, and he couldn't handle it again.
Right.
They put Illuminor out there, which you said they should have done from the start. But then our right tackle was having it. So, anyways, it was a whole thing. And then a lot of people started getting hurt. Like guys like Runyon, who never was hurt in his entire career, comes here and he gets hurt. So the offensive line can pass block. So you add Devontae Adams to this team with Rodgers, assuming Rodgers doesn't fall off a cliff, this team's going to score points.
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
I'm worried about the defense at that point. I mean, I hope the asshats and Carl Banks, which I doubt he is wrong, but even the owner kind of threw the guy under the bus. So again, I'm not sure what they're. I'm not sure what they're doing.
And I'll say this, right? One of the things that you have to decide what you are, right? That was one of the things that Cy brought up over and over again. You need an identity, and the first thing is you can't sit there and take some sort of like acronym and throw it out there like STD. And by the way, if you really thought about it, you would have not picked that fucking acronym. But either way, you don't throw an acronym like that out there and they become just words. It's like when your kid does something wrong and they go, "Oh yeah, sorry." They might as well said yellow because they're going to go and do the same thing the next time something comes up. They didn't really mean it. They just knew that was expected. So those words don't mean anything. What means something is if you mirror the buildup of your roster mirrors whatever it is you say you're going to be. So let's say the Giants get Rodgers. I want to use that for a moment. And we're not guaranteeing that's going to happen. But let's say they do. And then let's say they get Adams. Another thing, not guaranteed, but hinted that those two things could be a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a team that now is going to be expected to score points, right?
Right.
This is going to be a throwing team first.
Right.
You'll build the run off the throw. You'll give Rodgers latitude to do things. You'll see growth, assuming he's healthy, from Wan'Dale Robinson, because you'll now have a guy who can hit him in stride. He
Not
can hit him.
That's right.
Yeah, you'll hit him. He'll hit him early. He'll hit. And here's one other one, and you'll love this one because you've always been on this one. If you put Neighbors on one side and you've got Wan'Dale and you've got Adams, the one guy who I think will flourish the most in that situation is Jalen Hyatt, who you can just send deep. And a guy like Jalen Hyatt, look at his play against Arizona, the one game against Arizona where Daniel Jones hits him deep, right?
Yeah.
He's burned the corner and the safety. He is well beyond both of them, but he has to slow up just a bit for the ball. Aaron Rodgers will throw the ball 2/10 of a second before Daniel Jones ever would even think about throwing it. Thus, the ball is already leading where Hyatt is going to be. That's a touchdown.
Yeah.
Jalen Hyatt now. So, again, where I was going with this is now you got a team built to score. So what do you do defensively? You don't build a team that's big, physical, and we just want to do this. You build a team that will get after the quarterback because that team is going to have to score points. If you're going to put points up, the other team has to score points to keep up, thus getting after the passer, which makes an Abdul Carter a very big potential at number 3.
Yeah. And some people have speculated Mason Graham because you got another inside because he can do both. He can stop the run and he can get after the quarterback. So
how do you feel about Graham overall? For real? Like what do you,
I am a huge people who have read the site for years know I am like all in on defensive tackles. However, taking a defensive tackle at number 3, I wonder about positional value. So that's one of those guys, and he might not be there if you trade back. And I want to address this too. This was a good question. We have so many questions here. Wait, there's so many questions.
Oh, sorry, I just threw one up there. My bad.
Oh yeah, no, we'll do this one for Hyatt cannot run. No, that's true. All right. So the thing with Hyatt is this. Hyatt. Again, I'm one of the guys that says Hyatt's still untapped. My biggest problem with Hyatt is the lack of physicality. So if you go back and look at even the plays that he did make or didn't make or almost made, he's capable of circus catches, like believe it or not, one-handed circus catches, and he is capable of making adept sideline catches, keeping his feet in bounds. And he's really weird like that because he'll show like this amazing ability to adjust and make a sideline catch and make a tough catch, and then he'll drop an easy one. And part of that gets into the route running too. But the fun thing we do know he has issues with is physicality. He's not a big guy, and you can push him around. So the thing is you've got to maneuver him so he doesn't get jammed and things like that. I still think he's got enough upside in areas of his game that he can put the fear of God into teams, but you got to use him the right way. That's the way I look at him.
Sure.
I may be dead wrong about this, but again, he was a guy that was, and people say, well, he was going against the Giants secondary. He was lighting it up in training camp as a rookie. It was almost a daily occurrence where even the reporters were tweeting it or showing him all the time beating guys deep. He can do that kind of thing. The question is can he do enough of the other things that make wide receivers good wide receivers? The route running, the consistency, that type of thing. So we'll see. I would like to see him teamed with a real quarterback, and that's
agreed.
Wan'Dale Robinson. So it's a make or break year for Jalen. Jalen's going to be fortunate because there's not a lot of wide receivers on this roster right now. So he's probably a lock to make this team again. This is going to be it for him. I'm more optimistic about him than others because I've seen the wow plays. I was old enough to remember Stacey Robinson.
Hell yeah.
I never liked Stacey Robinson because I thought even though he made the wow plays, he made so many. He dropped so often and dropped things and stuff like that. Like he had that phenomenal catch in the 49ers game on the goal line. but he almost dropped that one too.
Well, the reason it was phenomenal is because he bounced it up in the air.
He bobbled it. But I don't think Jalen's another Stacey Robinson. I don't, but we'll see. I know I'm in the minority on this.
Yeah, you went a little bit. I thought you were going to go a little further back, like Byron Williams.
We've talked about Byron Williams. Yeah. Byron Williams, that's actually a better comparison. Byron Williams, his wow plays were as wow as they can get.
And that was pretty much the only place you got from him.
So this is actually a good question. So Jeremy, it doesn't make sense, but it all depends on how other teams rate the players that they're craving to trade up for. So while you and I and others might think no one would trade up for a Shedeur Sanders, if Tom Brady fell in love with Shedeur Sanders, this is a possibility. So I'm just saying, if someone offers me a number one and I'm the Giants to just drop back to 6, I'm listening. Obviously, if they're offering a 2 and a 3, I'm still listening. I think there's a lot of, I've seen a number of people now come out and say there's not a lot of separation in this draft with the guys in the first round and the guys in the second round. So part of me says, you can get first round talent in this draft in the second round. So it depends on what the offer is. But if they offer something like that, I think you got to listen. With keeping this in mind, even if you don't think Dable's not going anywhere, next year's draft is going to be better at quarterback. And if you don't get Ward or you're not sold on Ward, you now have draft capital to move around next year to move up, because the Giants are probably going to have a high pick next year too.
Well,
on how Aaron Rodgers.
And here's the thing, right? So people are asking questions kind of in a vacuum. You're asking very specific questions. We're all focused on the Giants, and then we say, why would this team do this? The Raiders are in the same boat we are. They're getting rid of Gardner Minshew. They've already said they're going to release him. They obviously do not believe in Aiden O'Connell. That's obvious. So they don't really have a quarterback either. So now you've got another team that doesn't have a quarterback. Free agency, which is why it's so important if the Giants, and by the way, Mike Francesa has come out and put his thing saying the Giants are all in on trying to get Aaron Rodgers, and that Shane is all in on the draft. So
wait, who said that?
That's Mike Francesa.
He just said it now?
Well, it was posted today, so I don't know how early it was.
Okay.
So you've got other teams. Now, let's not also ignore the Pittsburgh Steelers are in this group. They also don't have a quarterback right now. They do not have anybody signed. So you've got teams that what's going to happen in free agency is going to dictate what they do in the draft. So you might have a Raiders team, and you made a point that's very important for people to consider. Tom Brady has a very small minority ownership of the Las Vegas Raiders. That doesn't mean anything in the world of influence that he has.
He's a lot of influence.
The Raiders are treating him as if he's a de facto GM. He has a lot of say in what they're going to do. So
he met with who did he meet with out in Colorado? Was it
he met with Matthew Stafford.
Matthew Stafford, that's who it was. I'm sorry. And Matthew Stafford, they were all in on Matthew Stafford too,
which created a big fight between the two insiders. One insider, Rappaport, saying that they didn't just run, or they did. One of them said they ran into each other. The other insider said they didn't just run into each other. That was planned.
Yeah, right.
Either way, it seems.
There was a fight at a Starbucks.
Yeah, I know, right? So, which I would have loved to have seen that become physical. Those two guys would have been hysterical. Yeah. It's if you don't think Tom Brady has some influence, but think about the way that he's and what he's used to. He's used to veteran-laden teams with the Patriots, with the Buccaneers. They got a lot of veteran guys, and that's how they won. You've got a very old coach coming on with Pete Carroll coming back. He's what has he got? 2 years, maybe 3 years tops. He's going to want to win. They've got to do something splashy, edgy. What's more splashy and edgy than getting Shedeur Sanders, that whole persona, and building your team? So do I think they would give up a number one to come from 6 to 3? If their guy's there, I do think they would do that.
Now, if Sam Darnold doesn't go back to the Vikings, aren't the Raiders rumored to be
Correct. That is true. That is the rumor. Now, I heard a rumor about the numbers, so I'm going to throw this out there and see just how much it makes you sick as it made me. Sam Darnold, would we both say, chat, would you say right now in terms of the NFL, Sam Darnold is kind of the cream of the crop free agent quarterbacks right now? He's the guy that people are probably going to throw the money at? Is that true?
Because of his age and
right. And who else is out there? And who else is available?
Yeah.
The numbers that I've heard are like 123 million overall is like the contract, and I'm like, we gave Daniel Jones 160.
Well, I always thought he was going to get somewhere in that neighborhood over 100 million because the need supply demand. And
yeah, but 123 seems low.
Yeah.
I mean, we gave Daniel Jones 160.
Yeah. And we're already negotiating against. So, the other one no one is reporting. And I hope this is not true because if I were him, I would go there. I had one guy tell me that don't discount the Vikings being in for Aaron Rodgers. That doesn't make sense to me, given where they are. But if I'm Aaron Rodgers and I had an opportunity to go to the Vikings or the Giants, and the money was similar. I know where I would go. I hope that's not true.
I don't
me when I heard that. So.
I don't see that as. I mean, look at the coach. Kevin O'Connell hasn't been a guy who's gone out and really wanted the quarterback who's going to override him, the quarterback who's going to be bigger than him. He seems to be the quarterback whisperer. He made Cousins much better than Cousins was with Washington. You saw what he did with Darnold. You saw how he was able to scrape together wins with is it Mueller and with Dobbs when he had to play those guys. I think he knows. I've heard through a couple different things. I've heard that they're kind of in on possibly re-signing Daniel Jones to that team as the backup guy who could play. And if they lose out on Darnold, but I've also heard the Colts are interested in Daniel Jones. That's an interesting one to watch there.
Didn't Garrett Polo basically say and Schrager say that they felt that Darnold was going to re-sign with the Vikings?
That seems to be the prevailing. Like they didn't tag him, but that they're probably the ones who are going to offer him the most money overall. And it makes sense. He knows the team. You know what I mean? Like other teams, I can't imagine that anybody else is just going to forget what happened with the Jets or that he wasn't that great with the Panthers or that he spent a year just backing up in San Francisco. Now, there's another team really quick to throw out here that could change a whole lot of what happens.
Right.
I did see a thing. I was going to say here, but I didn't hear it. I saw it. That the 49ers are doing some weird stuff with their cap. They're not up against the cap, but they're under an edict to try not to spend.
Well, they're certainly getting rid of some talent. So
and it's all about the money.
Yeah.
So the question became, are the 49ers potentially open to moving Purdy before giving him the contract? They've already talked in the 40s and Purdy wants in the 50s. So there is some thought that maybe they would offer him up as part of a package deal to move themselves up to get a guy for the future. That puts them in play for somewhere in the top 5, if that's true.
And you mentioned that many shows ago that you wouldn't be surprised if Purdy was on the move. So we'll see. So all right. So let's wrap this up because I want to take questions.
Let's
we won't be able to get to all of them, but let's wrap this up. So I think the prevailing opinion is the Giants are going to sign a veteran soon. It's just who is it going to be? And it seems to be all signs are pointing to Aaron Rodgers. We'll have to see if that ends up being the case. It also seems like seems like a fairly obvious thing. They're going to draft a quarterback. The question is where do they draft the quarterback? And do they move up? Do they move down? Is it a first-round guy? Or is it somebody later? And how does that play with, assuming they get Rodgers? How does that interrelate with Rodgers? So I think that's kind of where we're at right now, right? So what do you think? You think they're signing Rodgers, right?
I do. I mean, I hate saying that because God, if it ends up not being here's my opinion.
They were going to get Matthew Stafford,
and they were in on it. But the thing about that is, I'll say this. I was mentioning it to you that there was a couple quarterbacks I wanted, and that's when you kind of told me, listen, I've already heard the Giants are, and this was back in the fall.
Right.
And we couldn't say it. We couldn't bring it up of who it was. And that was fine. We talked about that they were interested. But the Giants worked out the numbers and they worked out compensation. We just don't know what it was. We don't know what they agreed to give the Rams because it would be very interesting because that would be very telling on where they're going. So here's what I think. You asked a question. I'll just go by it. I've been thinking for a while that Rodgers is going to be the guy. I think it happens. I think we hear about it before Sunday morning. Because the Giants are going to roll into Monday. They got to know. Yeah. They can't wait. I mean, it could happen Monday morning, but every moment that goes by between now and Monday and you don't hear something opens the door that it's not happening, which means they've got to scramble elsewhere. And we haven't been hearing so far. We haven't heard them like the Giants are really leaning towards this guy. They're leaning towards that guy. The only thing we're hearing about is Rodgers. I think it gets done. I think we then see Adams get done really quickly after that. Those two things happen. Then we see what happens with the trade.
Right. And the only caveat here is there is a possibility the Giants are holding Aaron Rodgers over the Titans' head about, if you don't do a deal with us before free agency starts, we're going to sign him. Again, I know you've already argued against that point. I'm just saying that would be so. Some people who are saying this is all smoke screen, I won't completely discount the possibility that the Giants are using that as leverage. I trust. I shouldn't say trust. This Capiche, when he drops things, it's not his style to drop things like there was one guy in BBI a couple of years ago who was a total fraud. He pretended to be an Asshat. I don't even remember what his handle was, but he was so bad. He used to come on all the time. And then what was weird is after he got banned because he was such a fraud.
It wasn't the second Rico, was it?
I don't remember what his handle was, but he kept begging to come back on. And if he didn't come back on, he was going to sue me, or it was all this whole weird thing. He was like almost like to the website, and it was like, you better let me back on or else. And I don't know who that guy was. Anyway, Capiche is the total opposite of this guy, and he's like, I haven't moved from what I said. So it's just the way he's saying it. So I think again, things fall through. But I just have a feeling it's going to happen.
I wish we had the clip from Top Gun, the original Top Gun, for what you said about the Giants trying to hold that over the Titans' head to try to force the trade. Because then I'd play that little line and go, "Son, your body's writing you're writing checks your body can't cash."
Yeah.
Because you can't hold. I might sign this guy over somebody's head. You either sign him, and that's why I keep saying, if the Giants sign Rodgers, we now own the control of what we do or don't do without fear.
Right.
Because you don't have, it doesn't matter. If you take Ward, fine. We'll take Sanders. We'll move back maybe. We might take Carter. I might take Sanders. I might take Dart. If I move back, I take a different guy and I trade back into the first round with the capital I just got to take Dart. I don't care. You do what you're going to do because I will have Aaron Rodgers and I'll get another veteran to back him up.
Right. But you do agree with me that if Aaron Rodgers gets taken off the market by somebody else, our leverage.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that's why I think it either gets done or doesn't get done. And the Giants are going to have to pivot immediately to the next veteran option. But what do I
do now?
Well, I mean, they've got to have a pecking order, right? They must have a pecking order of how it goes. So in your mind, right, let's assume you and I are in agreement that Rodgers appears to be the target. Who is second if Rodgers goes? Who's the second veteran that you think that's the guy they'll pivot to veteran-wise?
Who's left? Russell Wilson, right?
Right.
Isn't the other thing that came out that the Steelers are leaning towards Justin Fields?
I've heard that Justin Fields, but I don't know where they're getting that from. That seems odd considering why didn't you play him last year then?
And isn't there whispers out there that the Jets are looking at Justin Fields?
I did see that, and then someone said that they're fine with Tyrod Taylor. They're also
no one's fine with Tyrod Taylor starting.
Well, you're totally fine with Tyrod Taylor for like 1 or 2 games until he gets hurt.
I know. I mean, again, that's the problem. He gets hurt all the time. So, all right, we can go on and on. There are so many. And sorry guys that we've been. Somebody said hi, Dad.
I will say that the is that maybe it's my kid.
Huntington.
I don't know. I didn't see it. So that might be. So Carr, Brendan Carr, as far as I know, everything I have seen says the Saints are keeping him. The Saints have redone a number of contracts to free up money, and they seem to do this every single year. Also, the thing to consider too, Eric, that we need to look at is the fact that
I'm listening.
Yeah, you're fine. The Browns freed up like $38 million the other day by restructuring Watson's contract, so they are now kind of in the position that they could bring somebody else on board. So.
Yeah, that's a huge question. What are the Browns going to do?
Well,
what are the Browns going to do?
By the way, let's call a timeout real quick to the Giants talk. Let's for the Browns real quick. If anybody wants to talk about the Giants being run poorly, I'll say you can say what you want, but talk about poorly is the goddamn Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett asked to meet Jimmy Haslam. He wanted to meet, and Haslam told his best player, the face of the franchise, nah, I don't want to meet with you. Can you? What a
weird thing. What a weird, strange.
Why would you want to piss your guy off? And by the way, you have a cap problem because you gave a guaranteed contract to a borderline, I don't know, felon, and certainly a guy you can't. Certainly a guy that you can only hire. You get sort of a weird rapey feeling from him that you can only get male massage therapists to come in and do for this guy. I mean, basically, he and Justin Tucker can only hang out together. So you literally tell the guy that he's your money in the bank. You could go and free up draft picks. You could bring in veterans. You could do whatever by moving this guy, and you won't even talk to him.
Weird. It's weird. But pivoting back to that, so much depends on the Browns because if the Giants stay at 3, that changes everything. Then what the Browns do. So again, I saw that the Charles Davis, who I respect.
I like Charles.
He had his mock come out, and it was Ward, Shador, Jackson Dart, 1, 2, 3, and it had Abdul Carter falling to the Patriots. It was like whoa! Whoa! If that happened, that would be that I can't imagine the website on that day. It would be again. If Dart turns out to be the next great quarterback, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's just. When I saw that 1, 2, 3, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I can't imagine." So, but again, last year there would have been people that would have flipped out if the Giants had drafted Knicks. But look how that worked out for Denver. Now I know you argue that's a better fit and all that, but let's just pretend that doesn't exist, and let's just pretend Knicks did do what he did for Denver with the Giants. That wouldn't have been a bad pick for.
See, and I totally. I know you just said, don't go down that route.
Don't go down that.
No, but I'll just say this, though. That's a great example, though, of knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and finding – instead of doing the square peg, I'm going to mash him into the round hole, and I'm going to tell him he's got to adapt to being round. It's literally like I'm going to find a peg. So you don't – the funny thing is, like you just mentioned a little while ago, coach to the talent you have, right? But what if sometimes it just makes more sense to just get the talent that fits your system? Don't bring guys in and try to make them work that system, because now you're really like, maybe I need to change for the guys. Don't do either one. Get guys that are perfect for your system.
Right.
And then you don't have to worry about it. That's the whole point of God damn it. The other insurance company from the accident. I'm going to have to call them back. Sorry, I'm broadcasting. I told you not to call me during that time, you son of a... Anyway.
John's making sacrifices here for the team. Literally making sacrifices.
Big time. So
we got Carl Banks there, by the way.
That's right. I know. I was thinking the same thing. But it's not the same thing. But I don't want an infection in the thing either later and get it operated on a second time. The Giants need to know what they are, what they want to be, and get those guys that fit that. So Nick's last year, I don't think he would have fit what we were doing. It would have been just throwing a guy out there and then say, do my system when he doesn't fit. Right. But you have a shot here. You have a good spot to do something like that with it. So anyway, DJ was an ass and Duke.
So I'm trying to go back to some earlier questions.
Please, yes.
There's a gazillion of them. Patrick, I agree, because the thing is with the number 2 this year, remember, it's at the very top. Was it? Is the second pick in the second or third? It's 34. So
34.
Yeah. So yeah, if you were doing this, you probably would prefer to keep this year's. Good question, Duncan. And this is one John brings up a lot. We know teams look ahead and try to rate drafts looking ahead. So they do analyze a preliminary analysis of comparing what might happen next year. So the Giants are looking at the 2026 draft, and it will, at least to a certain degree, influence a potential strategy. But you're exactly right. And John and I have brought this up before. You don't know who's going to, with NIL, you don't know who's staying, who's coming back. You don't know who tears an ACL. You don't know who's going to have a horrible season. John's brought up the example of Carson Beck before. So completely valid point. So, but the prevailing narrative is, and Cy is fallen into this narrative, is next year's quarterback class is far stronger than this one. That's the prevailing narrative. John and I have said maybe.
Right. We don't know. And you don't know where, I mean, unless you expect to pick 1 or 2. And I know a lot of people on here will say, well, I think the Giants are going to suck. There'll be 1 or 2. But no one in the Giants organization is going to go into the free agency, the draft process, the training camp, whatever, planning on being 1 or 2 in the draft next year. They're planning to win games, whether you like it or not. And I think right now you've got to make decisions not based on who, this weird where we might slot next year, because you don't know who's going to be there. Guys might come out of nowhere that may surprise that we don't even know about. The quarterback class could be absolutely spectacular next year, and it might be guys that nobody was projecting right now. We don't know.
And Shane and Dave will probably have more short-term focus right now than a long-term.
If we're drafting that high, they're not here.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter.
Exactly. So, by the way, because there's so many comments, I can tell based on his name and his questions that Danny Duds does not like Daniel Jones. So I'm not ignoring you, Danny Duds. It says Danny Duds. I can't read the full name. Does it say Ghost? Ghost. Yeah, Danny Duds. Yeah. Well, we've covered that on many a show. So.
I'm going to throw this one up there because I think this is a good one.
Oh yeah, because we got so many.
So surprise cuts
are. Good question.
I think Okereke is the one I would watch at the moment because it's weird. The fact that it came out very, very late, meaning late right before free agency begins, that the Giants upper management might not be so happy with him in particular, opens the door that they're looking to move away from him.
But with Matt Leonard too, so.
Well, it was, but I mean, it's weird if you state it saying upper management versus, the Giants could cut. You could just say Giants could cut him based to save money. He didn't play as well last year. You're very specific that some people in upper management. So who is that? Now, if Bowen's the guy saying shit to like a Pat Leonard, I don't even care that it's so late in the offseason. I'd fire Bowen. I'd let him know you don't talk to anybody outside of the organization. You're out of here. And we just bring in a different defensive coordinator. But let's assume that it's other people that are leaking it out.
Yeah. I would definitely put Nunez Roches in that category. I don't.
Oh, would he be a surprise? I mean, I seem like that's
well, I don't know what Jeremy considers a surprise. And I would put Graham Gano in that category. Definitely. There was an Asshat report on BBI that said the next re-signing on the Giants is going to be our punter. So if you're going to keep score, supposedly in the next day or two, it's going to be announced that our punter has been resigned. So if it doesn't, then you can say, well, that Asshat was wrong. But the ones that stood out to me in terms of the contract versus, and I'm a big Graham Gano fan when he went through that 3-year period where he was just money, but he's been hurt the last couple of years and he makes a lot of money and is getting up there in age. So I wouldn't be shocked. And Nunez Rocha right now, he's not worth the contract.
So real quick to Steven Simone, whatever your name is, nobody predicted 12-5. You can go back and look at it again. We did it. We did take on the fact that we expected them to be better. Yes, there was talk of possibly winning the division, but feel free. And but I do appreciate the fact that you are watching. We didn't predict 12-5. I can tell you that right now.
Just so you know, John always wants to do prediction shows, and I hate prediction shows. And on our show that we did on the upcoming season, after I was 2 or 3 beers in, he said, "Eric, what's your prediction?" And I said, "All right, I'm going to be optimistic here." And whatever I said, 11 wins or
no,
whatever.
no, I think you went 10-7. So did I.
So,
10-7.
I said again, part of this is that I'm a fan. So if you're going to,
by the way, Steven, you're here.
Optimistic, so be it. So,
but you're here though. So there you go. And I'm more than
Twitter the other day was saying how much garbage. I'm like, you know how Twitter works. You don't have to follow me if you don't. I don't get it. Sometimes I don't get it. Anyways,
right.
Let's see. We have so many great comments here. Wait, let me pick one. This is something that concerns me. And that's why I picked the stupid meme that I picked with the guy hitting his head into the garage door. I get the sense sometimes the Giants are 2 steps behind. And so, Neil, I share your concern. I hope that changes, but it seems like they're reacting more than proactively planning. And I hope they're not in that right now. It's kind of like what John just said. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't pan out, what's their next plan? I hope they have a next plan. I don't know. So,
well, I mean, I hear you on the reacting, planning, all that good stuff. But here's the thing. We don't know what their plan is.
No.
Obviously, they laid one out. And whether you want, not you, Eric, but I mean, you as a general consumer of our information, Steven, you don't have to listen to this. Those of you who consume whatever it is that we're all talking about, we don't have to believe it if you don't want to. But clearly, they sat down and said, what is the plan for this offseason? I said all along, and I'm willing to continue to say it, that I said it early and I stay by it. I think Daboll was guaranteed of coming back. Now, I think it got a little rocky because it got ugly. It got very ugly. I think they knew that they were going to ride with Jones as long as possible. But I think Daboll and Shane complained the hell out of the fact that Jones just really did not play well at all in 23 before being injured. He just didn't look good, period. I think they ran through as far as they could. And when it became obvious, Washington was the first part. There were some chances early that we could have done a little bit more. Definitely Cincinnati, Dallas. Those 2 games very easily could have been Giants games. 2 teams that have offenses that can score points. The Giants defense, which is not great, held them fairly in check, and the Giants couldn't put up any points. Both games at home, that's embarrassing. When that happened, and then the Carolina game was the icing on the cake. The flea flicker was the end of the story. You had 2 options. Both of them were good, and he decided to take option 3, which was a sack. So that was it. That was the end of Jones. That was the end. And I think Daboll was coming. Shane was coming back no matter what. Daboll was probably coming back, but it got ugly. It got ugly because fans really made it ugly. John Mara said, I won't get rid of people just because of, kind of a spite thing.
Right.
But I actually think the better answer he should have said was, I was willing all along to bring them back based on we wanted to see if we could win with Jones. I wanted them to try to play that out. It wasn't working, and we agreed that if it wasn't working, I would let them cut the ties at a certain point, and we would go a different route. But instead, what he waited until there were banners flying overhead to then get kind of maybe they won't come back. But it really was one guy was the maybe, and that was Daboll. So they meet, they talk, they do whatever. I'll say this. I know you keep bringing up the Colts game. I'm going to give you a different version of the Colts game. The Giants didn't need to tank any games at the end of the year because, quite frankly, they were playing 3rd, 4th, 5th stringers on defense. They were doing absolutely nothing. Nobody could have predicted that the Colts would be so freaking bad while they were still kind of in the chase for the wild card. They were still in it at that point in time, and they just completely
but
fell
do
apart.
what you did against the Eagles the following week and really sit even those guys. So
but remember the difference about those two games. The Colts are playing all their starters. The Eagles aren't. You already know they're not playing their starters.
Look,
you can argue that, but I'm telling you,
you've heard me a million times say you can't tank 17 games, but you can tank 2. And they were.
You didn't. But what if you didn't think you needed to? What if you thought you were so bad you didn't think you were going to win?
As soon as Malik Neighbors is going off on the Colts, I'm like, whoa.
How do you tell Malik Neighbors that?
You know what I say to him if he gives me any whip? If you want a real quarterback here next year, sit your ass down. And I'll say this, and this is where sometimes people think you and I agree too much, so I think it's best that we disagree. You lost that leverage the second Hard Knocks aired, and you talked about him as a dog. And when you let him sit out on practices on Friday, and where you were talking to him when all of a sudden an injury, when they weren't there, you lost all of that leverage early on. And divas are divas, and you created one when you built that guy up bigger than the team. And that is on Daboll and Shane. It cost them Ward, and Ward goes on.
Did they though? We don't know that yet, so let's not.
But if they don't, unless Ward drops the 3, it's going to cost them things that they expensive things. So I want to get back to the point that you made about the plan. That could be certainly possible up to a certain point. My problem with that would have been if you were going to think that, then you don't bring in Drew Lock, you bring in somebody else like a Russell Wilson who came here and the Giants said they weren't going to allow him to compete for the spot. But so they benched Jones, and the way they handled the quarterback position and the team for the rest of the year seemed like there was no plan. It was like, all right, so DeVito comes in, gets hurt. But then when he's healthy again, he's not playing again. It's they stick with Locke. And the whole team was confused at that point. If you were right and they had a plan, it would have made sense for Mara to come out and say what he did, to be honest.
Well, honesty is not his big thing.
It would have been honest. But I'm not sure I can even give them that much credit that they had a plan at that point. But if they did have a plan, I do agree with you. It'd be better if the Giants would start being honest with people and saying, and maybe and stop getting over this. Well, Saquon or Daniel, soldiers, and we don't want to hurt their feelings, and we want to make sure they're happy. Stop worrying about if they're happy. Worry about if I'm happy. Worry about if John is happy and all these other people. But doesn't it happy right now?
But doesn't it indicate? Doesn't it indicate though that there was a kind of a plan when they were trying behind the scenes, and we know this to be true now, that they were pivoting towards trying to get a Matthew Stafford, a veteran, in. They weren't trying to get a guy that would be better than Locke. They were getting a guy who's top tier still in the NFL in a season already that started to go downhill.
Yes, but then why was Daboll's job in jeopardy?
But we don't see. We think it was. But we think it was.
We didn't tell him until after week 16 that he was coming back.
We think it was, and I agree with you.
Well, they said they had a sit-down meeting with them, and they did.
And this is why I think the thing that he said is a complete lie. I don't think he chose to not do things out of spite. I think he started to think about doing things because of the banner. I think the agreement, he was going to bring him back, and then the banner started coming, and he was all embarrassed. And now, so I think the spite part seems like after the fact. I think he started reconsidering what he was doing and like, oh, crap, I'm embarrassed. Look what's happening. I might fire you, which, by the way, is no less as bad than the other way. It just says you have no freaking idea of what you're doing. I just hope, and you and I talked about this, and then let's hit some questions. We'll go a little bit longer anyway. Let's hit some questions. We'll finish it up because we want to be really ready for Monday. But I still am a firm believer. There are some things you do out of choice, and it's great. And there are some things that happen based on choice. Like like my current situation, I'm going to be doing some things now, not because that's what I wanted to do, but what's now come to me, I've got to make choices based on that.
Right.
I feel like the choice the Giants can make is Rodgers. It could be a different free agent quarterback, but at the moment it's Rodgers, and I'm all in on it being Rodgers. That's the choice you make. At 3, I let what comes to me. I don't go out of my way to go make one, because sometimes it's better to sit and wait. LT came to the Giants because the Saints took George Rodgers. We don't know what would have happened if the Saints took somebody else, because this was an era that big running games are important. How do we know that George Young wouldn't have gone?
Right.
We need George Rodgers. We don't know that. We just know that Rodgers was gone and we took LT, and that changed the whole thing. We took Carl Banks in 1984, but we didn't need a linebacker. But the Giants took him because that's the way it fell. That's what I'm hoping for at 3. Deal with what you can do in free agency, make those choices, and then allow the best opportunity to come to you at 3.
Yeah, I guess to me it comes down on what do you really think of Ward? Do you think he's a stud? If you think he's a stud, you're at 3. You can, if you can trade up, I probably do it. I don't like doing it, but I probably do it. If you think Ward's a stud. If you don't think Ward's a stud, then the options are obvious. You stay at 3 or you trade down. I don't think I'm trading up for anybody else but the quarterback. And if Carter falls to you. Like, again, I heard they really like Hunter too. It's not that they don't like Carter. I mean, they like Carter too. I should back up. They really were impressed with Hunter's interview too at the combine. He nailed it out of the park. That's what I heard with the Giants. So I think so. What we got Capiche saying Rodgers is done. Giants might trade down. We've got a couple of assets saying they're trying to trade up with the Titans. We'll find out who is right, who is wrong soon, because it's got to come. This has got to come to a head soon because of free agency. As John and I keep saying, they cannot, but they can, but it'd be stupid. They got to get this resolved, or they're going to be in a really difficult position because they won't have a lot of leverage with the Titans.
So I realized I had muted myself. Sorry, when I wanted to say something. How, as the Heisman Trophy winner and the presumed top 2-3 guy in the draft, how do you not nail it in the interview? What did the Giants ask him? Questions on what do you do if the ball is thrown your way on defense? What if you're playing wide receiver and we throw you the ball? I mean, what questions could they possibly have asked him to go? He nailed it out of the park.
I'm just hearing that he nailed it out of the park. That he really impressed them in the interview part. So
pardon this. Fucking interviews like that don't mean a whole lot to me. Quarterbacks, yeah, if you want them to draw a play, but I remember Dayball asking Jaden Daniels questions, and I'm like, you know what I got from that? And I know he knew the cameras were there. I thought Dayball was an arrogant ass the way he would throw it out there, like, just do this. You know what? A lot of that shit means nothing to me. I heard an interview, a really good one, by the way, with Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller. If you're not familiar, it's on Moving the Chains on Sirius XM Radio. Jim Miller, former quarterback in the NFL, played for the Bears and a couple. In fact, he signed with the Giants at one point. I think he had a hip injury that prevented him from ever playing. And then Jim Kerwin was a GM in the NFL. I believe it was with the Jets. They asked Ward, give me some of the plays. Give me and he broke, and I think I put it in one of the chats. He broke the play down. He gave the play, and I'm listening to it, and I'm writing it down going, I don't really know what each of these mean, but I'm going to write it down. And then he told what it meant and what it meant to him and where to go with it. Ward, to me, sounded so calm, so cool about the way he just said that. And he's like, and if this happens, then I'm going to go here, but I really need to read this. And based on that, it was the exact opposite of everything I expected from Ward, who a lot of people tend to make it seem like he's a off-platform kind of guy, like he just kind of wings it and stuff happens. He's very calculating. He knows. He's reading things. He has far more of a grasp of things than I think people give him credit for.
His coaches love him. His coaches love him, and I don't think that's just coach speak about, I think, and he's supposedly a real big team leader. So, and
I can see guys following him very easily.
And this gets into what Trainmaster was saying. So I would just be a little bit wary, Trainmaster, about any people saying, now I'm not talking about the size of the world. I'm talking about people saying things on ESPN or Fox Sports or whatever, because if teams want players to drop to them or not cost as much, they will say good or bad things about players to hope there's a different outcome. There was a great question earlier on. I was trying to find it, and I apologize whoever asked it earlier. And I've made the same point on the website recently. The Giants may be flooding the zone too with they like Hunter, they like Carter, they like this quarterback, they like that quarterback, because they did a good job, as you said. Somebody just said this. They did a good job last year with McCarthy in clouding things, and they could be deliberately doing that as well too. But the same thing is true with other teams too. I personally think that Shedeur Sanders is actually getting more grief than he deserves right now. I wonder if some of that's because teams, maybe like a team like the Raiders, want his stock to fall. So again, I haven't made my mind up completely on these guys. I'm still researching a lot. And a lot of this gets back to me not just watching stuff, but accumulating information from the draft guides and things like that. So I just be a little wary about pecking order and rankings and things like that with quarterbacks in particular, because there might be an ulterior motive why people are saying the things that they're saying. So if I'm the Giants, I grade Ward and grade Shedeur Sanders and Dart and Milroe and all these guys, and I'm not paying attention to what other people are saying at this point. That's me.
Yeah, I mean, well, and you look at it too, like go back to 2018. There was a couple of nights before the draft. Everybody was projecting Sam Darnold possibly being the number one pick in the draft. Maybe Barkley was going to be the number one pick in the draft. Nobody had Baker Mayfield. And I kind of threw it out there that I thought maybe the Giants should consider Baker Mayfield. I thought he was a better choice in the draft than a Sam Darnold, which everybody was trying to peg Darnold to the Giants. And I'm like, I just don't see it. But the Giants ended up doing the idiotic thing, and they took a running back with no offensive line and an aging quarterback. I mean, why wouldn't you? Recipe for success. So,
and then he goes on to the Eagles and wins a Super Bowl. Great.
So you look at that same draft, though, right? That same draft, a lot of people, and Cy, one of our favorites, a lot of people had Josh Rosen considered one of the best quarterbacks coming out. Cardinals take him. He fails horribly. The Cardinals take the first pick in the draft next year and take another quarterback.
So many people on the website loved Josh Rosen, to the point that even when Josh Rosen was ending up on other teams, they wouldn't let it go.
Yes.
So it just shows you that. And so, I mean.
And you can't predict, right? Like Josh Rosen had all the talent in the world in college. You cannot predict really what they're going to do at the pro level. You better be all in on whoever you're going to go with. I think you've made that point overall.
Oh, yeah.
If you think that's your guy, then get him. But I'm with you. In a draft of question marks, and this is a draft full of them at the top, there are some really good players, but the gap between the really good and then where guys are kind of the same. You talked about it. I think you saw someone say 15 to 30. I saw 20 to 40.
Yeah.
It's the same damn thing, where all the players are kind of the same at that point. So at the top, you're looking at difference makers, or you're looking to make a difference if you're moving down. For me, the Giants, this is why Mason Graham makes no sense to me for the Giants.
There's a lot of defensive linemen.
I think, absolutely. I think Mason Graham's a really good player. But if I were to ask you, Eric, what is the trait that sets him above anybody? What's the one trait that sets him above anybody?
You're talking about his run defense?
I don't know. I'm asking you. I don't have one.
Oh, okay. I thought you said there was one particular.
No. I'm asking you.
That's the point. Look, Mason Graham is clearly ahead of the other guys, but there are a lot of other guys behind him that, like you're getting to, that they're pretty darn good too. So
it's the floor ceiling thing too, right? Yeah. I think Mason Graham's floor is way up here.
Yeah.
I also think his ceiling is here. He's not a great pass rusher. He's a really good run defender. He reminds me, and this is not a knock of him in a certain situation, this would be great. He reminds me of Aaron Smith. He would be a great 3-4 defensive end, a true 5 technique guy,
Right.
or he's that good guy to have next to the playmaking defensive tackle because he's going to be a physical presence. He's going to bull rush some people. He's going to play the run very tough. He's going to open up things on the outside. But when you do, so he's kind of like a Robert Harris to your Keith Hamilton.
Right.
But if you're going to go at 3, he better be Aaron Donald,
Oh yeah,
or I don't take
better be like a Vince Wilfork or an Aaron Donald or somebody like really.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
That's why, and I'm a big fan of his, but I don't think I'm taking him at 3. I'm trading down, and if he's gone before you pick, like if you traded down to 6 and he's gone before then.
Let's share this. I think this is important. Alex Curtis shared Landry's been released by the Titans. I would say this, Alex, I don't think it debunks the trade. What I do think it is that they didn't work it out because they need to make a move before the league year comes around because it's also money. It's the Titans wanted to get rid of his contract is really what they wanted to do.
Now, Alex, I do kind of agree that might debunk it. So we'll see. And then we're going to, do I still have that? Because of in honor of Alex, we'll put that under. So that's. So I
like this one better though.
Which one is it? John for the win.
I don't even know what it was I was saying at that moment, but thank you. It made me. It made my day. It's been a rough week. I just want to win.
Explain what that was in reference to, John for the win.
I think it was back when we were talking about like the different draft pieces, the quarterback stuff, things like that.
Okay.
So let's set the table for Monday. And if something weird happens over the weekend, we might be able to come on. I actually, one of my daughters is coming in from Maine, so I'm kind of going to spend some time with her. I'm going to try to continue to recoup. I can't type left-handed. I can't do anything left-handed.
You got surgery coming up.
I got surgery on Tuesday, so I'm hoping nothing major happens on Tuesday. Monday we're on. Wednesday we'll come back on. I have surgery on Tuesday. Hopefully it goes smoothly and easy, and then hopefully we'll be
I can't imagine doing this by myself, being on here. Hello.
Hi. It'll be fine. It'll be fine for Monday and Wednesday. But Monday we will be on at noon. I do apologize. I know some people had problems with the stream that I set up, and it set it up on YouTube, and you followed the link, but it wasn't working. It worked the last time we did live, so just bear with us. We're still working out the kinks. I thought it did. I will have this set up
video that I've embedded on the site, so they may be referencing that. So.
But I'll have it set up ahead of time. I know, right, Andrea? Oh, can Andrea sub for me? Well, she'll be at the hospital with me, so I don't know if that works. So we will. Thank you, Brendan. He cracks me up. Thank you for checking in on me too. By the way, I appreciate that.
Oh. I didn't have my mic in front of me. Somebody just said I had to invest in a mic. Sorry, that's my.
Oh, you sounded normal to me, but you know.
Oh man.
So on Monday we will be on. I'll probably set it to begin a few minutes before noon. I want us to be ready. I expect stuff is going to happen beforehand, and we can be flexible. We can set it to go live whenever we feel like it. So. If something happens with like Aaron Rodgers prior to even noon, then maybe we'll come on, but plan on noon that we'll start. And we're going to cover, we might just be chit-chatting because there'll be other stuff is going to be going on. Legal tampering they might as well just make it free agent. I don't know why they call it that bullshit. Teams make decisions and deals right off. Now, keep in mind though, it's not official until Wednesday at 4:00. Right. We have seen deals in the past that fell through. Washington did release Jonathan Allen. I don't know if you saw that. That's official that they did release Jonathan Allen.
I kicked the tires on that, by the way.
Yeah, I'm curious on why. Not on your part about why you'd kick the tires, but why would you release? You have so much cap space, but they've decided obviously to go in a different direction and stuff. So now there is one other thing in the league, right? There's cap space. There's also a minimum amount that teams have to spend. And the Rams were in that bucket where they needed to spend a certain amount. I don't know what the formula is for it, but what I heard watching a podcast on the Rams, because they were talking about the Stafford deal, is they had to work out a number of contracts going forward to meet that minimum, and they wanted it to be with their young players. That's why Stafford was still kind of up in the air about possibly moving on, because they didn't want to go too far up the chain on numbers for Stafford.
Yeah.
Which is why ultimately it's amazing he took less money to not go to another team.
So when we come on Monday at noon, there might be a flurry of news from multiple teams. And we may be having a hard time even keeping up, or it could be boring as hell. We could be playing
Boring.
So we have no idea. We have no idea what's going to happen. So, but we'll have our beer. We'll have our
a couple of
refills.
Couple
We might have to have runs to the restroom.
Yeah, take a. I'll be right back.
So, yeah, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I think we should do it for the draft too. I think that'd be pretty fun.
Oh, we'll be live in the first round of the draft. I'm looking forward to it. I plan on having some draft folks. There's a guy that does a draft guide. It's a little different than others. He always gets it out before the combine. He doesn't care about what the combine says or anything like that. He does it based on all the tape that he's watched throughout the year. I reached out to him recently. He liked the reach out that I put out to him. So I'm wondering if we're going to take it that next step, but I'll see if I can get him on. We'll have Cy back on. There's some other draft folks, but this is free agency. This is a big deal for the Giants. And just for shits and giggles, I don't think it'll go anywhere, but I did try to get Aaron Rodgers. I reached out to him. I gave him a whole spiel. I gave him a whole spiel on why. And then I followed it up with, here's the funny thing. I followed it up with a Devontae Adams thing, and Devontae Adams ended up following me. So I thought that was kind of funny. So I'm like, hey, who knows? Let's see what happens. But
he's getting plugged into the New York Giants because he knows he's coming here.
Well, you need to. Yeah, exactly. So we'll
and Pete Traeger, if you're out there, come on the show.
I'm going to try it again. And Carl Banks did say he would come on. So we'll try to get him. I'd like to do it a little bit later after some of the free agency stuff. Yeah. And I saw some of the other things. Anyway, there's some of the people that cover the Giants get kind of mad at us recently.
Yeah, somebody's really mad at us.
So, yeah. Reached out to me.
I don't really understand. But anyway.
Reached out to me. And he
maybe.
Was fuming. I calmed it down. Think it's good. But yeah, so that's what we're going to do. Breaking news will be very important if anybody can. Donald just shared as well his thing here, which is basically the same thing that we just got. As far as the leverage for Tennessee, ultimately, Eric kind of nailed it. Tennessee has all the leverage at the moment for any team that wants to come up for a quarterback, because those teams that want to come up don't have a quarterback. The Jets technically don't have a quarterback. The Giants, the Steelers, the Raiders, none of us have a quote unquote quarterback. So we don't have any leverage in the draft to say whatever. Here's the funny thing. Tennessee doesn't technically really have a quarterback either. You obviously don't think that what's his name? God, I forgot his last name. And Mason Rudolph. You don't think those guys are it. So where's your leverage for the quarterback spot? Why aren't you after one of these guys? So Levis, thank you, Neil. Jesus, I don't know how I forgot that. I might have a concussion from the other day too, by the way. There was a good 10, 15 seconds when I came back.
You're not joking.
No, I'm not joking. Oh, after we got hit, there was the bang, and then it was really quiet, but it wasn't quiet. But for me, it was quiet. There was literally, we thought the car was on fire. I had to climb out the back. Everybody had to get
Dear
out.
Lord.
Yeah, it was scary. So I'm not fully sure if I'm worried that my wife definitely got a concussion. She's bruised all over.
Oh, you didn't say that either. Damn.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about something else, not that, because it was scary.
Was she all right?
Yeah, so she had a gash on her forearm, and I think it was the glass from the window. I don't know. I think it was. We're not really sure. But later on, and she had a little bit with her neck. They did a CT scan that came out fine. but she's had a headache. She's been a little dizzy off and on here and there. So we do think there might be a concussion, but she has a bruise across her abdomen. We believe that was from the seatbelt. She has bruises on her legs. I have a bruise on my knee and a cut on my knee that I thought I got later because I didn't know it until I got.
You got hit in the side.
So basically, we were coming straight. Oh, let's see if you see in the camera. We were coming straight, and all of a sudden, then there's a line. There's 3 rows of cars going in our direction. One line is stopped. So we're heading up to a light. One line was stopped, and there's a gap where they stopped because there's a way that you could come through from the other side.
Right.
This woman crossed 2 lines of traffic going in that direction into that median open area between the parked cars. We didn't see her, though, until she pulled right across in front of us. And as we were here, it just came right through the front. So she T-boned us in the front and just drove us into the side.
Wow. All right. I didn't know. I knew it was bad, but I didn't know
a tick earlier. If we're there just a little bit sooner, she's hitting us right in the side. So Andrea and my son would have taken it.
Not to dwell on it. How fast was she going?
That I don't know. I think she was trying to whip across. We were probably doing 35, and it went from 35 to 0 real fast. I mean, it was real
she must
fast.
have been moving. Okay.
So there's 2, 4. There's like 6 or 8 airbags in this vehicle all the way to the back. Every single one of them deployed.
Wow.
So yeah,
thank goodness for the kids.
Anyway,
well, if you start acting like Dwight Schrute, get to the hospital.
Yeah. What's wrong with the moon face guy? Oh, he burned his foot. No. The other guy, I think he's got a concussion.
Yeah. You start acting like Dwight, then it's time to get into the hospital again. All right, let's wrap this up. Apologies for people who I just saw on the BBI that I did not put the mic in front of me. I apologize. So if you had trouble hearing me, that was my bad. So we're getting the kinks out. We're working the kinks out. And that's why we're doing the live shows now, because we want to be ready for Monday.
Well, there might be breaking news. Did Tom and Fox re-sign? It sounds like he did.
Oh, yeah. Wow. That's great.
So there you go.
What do people always say? Super Bowl.
Championship. Championship. Yeah.
Wait, where are you seeing that?
Paul Soltero shared it that Tom and Fox is back in the fold.
Oh, man. I guess that's that. He was on the practice squad most of the year, wasn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so anyway, we'll be back on Monday. We obviously the site gets updated, bigblueinteractive.com gets updated with anything we see. I would suspect you're going to see a couple of things done over the weekend with guys who are available or rumors, especially quarterback wise for the Giants. They if they're really all in on Rodgers, they're going to do everything possible to lock it up before Monday, because you can't decide who else to chase if you're still chasing quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You saw how it was last year, right? We had a tier of guys. They met. They said, here's the running backs, right? They talked about Shakeups. They talked about Singletary. They talked about who was out there as a possible replacement for Barkley. They talked about offensive linemen. They looked at who might be too expensive for them and who would they pivot to. And if this guy goes, they were really on top of a lot of that. And that's how we got Runyon. That's how we got Illuminor. The Giants need to figure out, if they can figure out Rodgers, that opens the door to go after whatever we know we need a cornerback. They're probably going defensive line. And you've already heard the Giants are probably interested in fixing the offensive line in the draft, but I suspect it's also in free agency.
Yeah. Well, it'll be busy, but we got Tamon Fox back in the fold. This is my reaction.
Jesus Christ!
I mean, am I right or am I right? Screw it.
All right, I'm like a kid with this. All right. That was too harsh for Tamon Fox.
I was
gonna save that for something worse.
I was gonna ask you just for shits and giggles, but I thought it would go in the really wrong direction to see if you could find the Revenge of the Nerds clip.
Oh wait, which one?
About Lamar and his limp wristing throwing style. But I was like, that would really go in a. I just didn't think it would go in a good direction.
Do that.
So anyway, so we've got that. So we've got that coming up. It'll be a lot of fun. We are going to be live. We're going to do it all. Take questions. Take breaking news. And if we can, and we'll keep an eye on. I mean, I don't know if we can get people to come on, media wise, because they're going to be busy doing their own crap. But you never know. And we'll reach out to people and get them on. But we'll be live for sure.
Yeah, and I've got lots of videos.
We've loaded a lot. So with that, I think we'll call it an end. Please do me a favor. Last I checked, I think we were 866 subscribers. At 1,000, we can monetize, and I know that might sound kind of bad to say to some people, but honestly, a lot of work and effort goes into this. So if we can keep it going and we want to build it further, there's a lot of different individual things. It might not sound that big of a deal, but to do a lot of these things, I've added things. I bought some of these things to do it, and I have so much fun doing it. I know you do.
I bought my mic that I didn't use.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And I'm trying to get better with the thumbnails. It was hard to create one.
I'm drinking a whole hell of a lot more beer.
That's for
Please
sure.
help us drink.
That's right. Please. So anyway, if you could subscribe, like, comment, I would love that. Shout out to my daughter Nashima. Yes, you were watching. Thanks. She did text me. You are watching. I do appreciate it. But I hope
my language was good.
I also don't worry about that. She goes to school, for God's sake. She's 16 years old. I also prefer that you're actually paying attention to school. So there is that. But thank you for watching anyway. So yeah, we'll catch you guys on Monday. And unless you had anything else, Eric, we'll
let's get ready for Monday.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll catch you on Monday.